Shall we begin?
Why not? Welcome to Frankie Sense and More. It's like she's got a whole lot of goodness for you with a little bit of sass.
Frankie, did you just say...
She sure did. Not to mention, along with...
Whoops.
Join us now as Frankie Picasso and her new co-host mix it up with authors, musicians, and interviews with world-changing people.
Let's begin now.
Okay, let's begin now, because it only makes sense.
Shall we begin?
Why not? Welcome to Frankie Sense and More. It's like she's got a whole lot of goodness for you with a little bit of sass.
Frankie, did you just say...
She sure did. Not to mention, along with...
Whoops.
Join us now as Frankie Picasso and her new co-host.
Shall we begin?
Why not? Welcome to Frankie Sense and More. It's like she's got a whole lot of goodness for you with a little bit of sass.
Frankie, did you just say...
She sure did. Not to mention, along with...
Whoops.
Join us now as Frankie Picasso and her new co-host mix it up with authors, musicians, and interviews with world-changing people.
Let's begin now.
Okay, let's begin now, because it only makes sense.
Hello there, and welcome to Frankie Sense and More. I am your host, the unstoppable Frankie Picasso, and today I have as my co-host, as usual,
Hello,
Mr.
hello.
Frederick Goodbye.
Hi,
Bonjour.
everybody. Bonjour.
Bonjour. So I'm going to, we have a wonderful guest. We have Dr. Andrea Libutti, who started the Autism Wellness Revolution to transform the lives of children with autism and their families. She's also the author of Awakened by Autism, published by Hay House. And Dr. Libutti is also the mother of a son with autism, as well as being a board-certified physician specializing in emergency medicine. She says that her greatest hope is to empower families to take useful action to restore their children's physical and emotional well-being while embracing them with the love and acceptance they deserve. And it's a fantastic book, and we're going to talk about it in just a few minutes. Also with us is April, who has a son, Morgan, also on the autism spectrum, and Cerise, who has her son, Alexander, again on the autism spectrum. And both moms are going to share their stories a little bit later. But first, we need to talk to Fred, because we have a good news story, which is going to be aligned with the global goals, United Nations global goals. So what do we got today, Fred?
We got a wonderful little cute story from a wonderful little cute boy, I should say, or I don't know. All right, the title is Teen Proves He Has Soul, Gives Homeless Man the Shoes Off His Feet. And that happened, it's a 14-year-old boy in Louisville, Kentucky. His name is Laren Tunstall. And he took his brand new sneakers off his feet and gave them to a homeless man he met on the street. And, he said to CNN, you could tell like he's been hurt so many times because he sat down and spoke to the person. He spoke to the homeless person, and the soles were completely gone. Like underneath, he literally had his feet on the ground. And what the boy did is took off his brand new Nike Air Jordans, and he gave them to the man. And, somebody took a picture of the moment and posted it to Perp Me's Facebook page on September 5th. And the thing went viral, and a donor has bought him a new pair of shoes, basically. And, so it's pretty cool. Perp
That's
Me
very
is
special. Yeah, especially when young kids, usually they're kind of unaware sometimes. But here's a guy walking down the street, sees a homeless guy, and literally gives him the shoes off his feet. That's amazing. Yep. Yeah, I love that.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Hey, let's get on to the interview.
Yeah. Well, we have,
awesome.
as I said, Dr. Andrea Libutti is with us. She is a board-certified emergency medicine physician, and she wrote an amazing book called Awakened by Autism. And I have to say, I loved it. Welcome, Andrea. Welcome.
Hello.
Hi, Frankie. Thank you so much. I appreciate the input.
I don't know if you were here when I introduced Fred. Fred's my co-host. And we also have two other moms who are going to join us a little bit later in the show. Really loved the book. And I have done a lot of shows on autism, I have to say, through the years. And I was so happy to read that it wasn't a one-size-fits-all.
Yeah. It's so the opposite of that, really. Like, all kids in general, but autism especially.
You know, you bring up a lot of topics in the book, and one of them is the idea of, we are so socialized and we're expected to act a certain way. And when we don't act that way, we become embarrassed as parents, or we become frustrated and thinking, and as teachers, no, we need this child to, assimilate. We need them to be like everybody else. And even in the medical profession, I always had this kind of feeling that doctors are kind of tagged as being non-curious. Like they just do what you're supposed to do. The drug companies come in, they tell you what to give, and, you're a good little doctor and you do what you're supposed to do. You're not really supposed to think outside the box too much. But again, here you go, defying the professions all the way around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, leave it to a child to, prompt the change in me, right? I mean, it's, it's the parents that are leading the, the evolution, I guess, if you will. There's nothing worse than not being able to help your own child. And so you start looking outside of the box. And fortunately, I practice emergency medicine. So of all the medicine I could be practicing from a Western standpoint, that's the sort of thing that I can do when I go in, because it is really acute medicine. It's not like the, preventative and all the other stuff. So it works out well.
You see a whole spectrum of cases every time, I'm sure. You're going to see everything from heart attacks to babies coming. The idea that, the statistics that you present in the book, I think it was something like, was it 60 years ago? It was 1 in 5,000 children had autism, and today it's like 1 in 64. Maybe it wasn't even that many years. Incredible.
Yeah.
What happened?
Yeah.
Why do you think
what's
that is? I mean, it's.
Why do I think that is?
Yeah. I mean,
well,
Yeah,
well, there's two answers to that. There's the sort of what's the right way? It's not really a mainstream answer, but there's the answer of, we have a planet and products and a way of living that is, sort of toxic. I mean, we have a lot of pollution, we have a lot of stress, we have all these things going on, and there's a body burden that accumulates in people, and that body burden gets passed on to children, and so then we have this, spectrum of disorders, and including, allergies and asthma and diabetes and so-called autoimmune diseases that are all on the rise, cancers too. So that's sort of the from the physical standpoint. But then there's this bigger picture issue of what's going on, which is, sort of woo-woo for some people. But there is a reason that these kids are here, and they're here to wake us up and help us.
Yeah, that's, I'm a metaphysical hypnotherapist. I should let you know. So I do understand where you're coming from on that score. Although it is still out there for a lot of people to see that child as a gift rather than a burden.
Yeah.
And you described in the book, Andrea, how when you got that diagnosis, when Jack was diagnosed with, with autism, and it was kind of like, well, love him anyway, just go home and,
right,
do what you can.
Right. Yeah.
And it was discouraging. You're a new mom. You're so discouraged by this. And I'm sure the other moms will probably tell a similar story when they come on. So what did you feel, you and your husband talk, what was that conversation right after?
Oh, I don't think we spoke. I think I just cried and cried. Like I couldn't even, I couldn't wrap my brain around what to do next. I literally just shut down for 3 weeks and I just cried. And I'd sleep and I'd wake up and I'd be like, oh no, I want to go back to sleep. And I'd just cry some more. And he got really scared. He was like, I think I mentioned it in the book. He got really scared one night. It was like 3 a.m. and I wake up crying. And he's like, you got to get yourself together. You got to get a grip. I had a newborn baby and Jack at the time. So it was, it was devastating. There's no doubt about it. I can say that it's a gift now, but that took 10 years, maybe not quite 10 years, but it took a long time to get here, kicking and screaming. But it was, we want our kids to be healthy. We want to see them married. We want to see them, going to college and being happy. And, that was sort of off the table when we got the diagnosis. It was like there was no way that was going to happen. So it was like really devastating. So I do not discount how parents feel. I think what's kind of scary is
that in most of the cases that I've read about, and I don't know if you guys have seen Life in a Owen Susskind.
You're breaking, Frankie.
The movie about him, the documentary. Oh, sorry, the movie about Owen Susskind, who had the documentary about him, Life Animated, is that you have a seemingly normal child up until the age of 13 months or 2 years old, and then boom, they wake up one day and they're gone, and so you don't even know if it's going to happen to you, and when it's going to happen.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. It's scary. It's scary for parents, for sure.
Yeah.
So there's no warning signs that, something's going to come down the line here? What should we look for? Anything?
Well, there's not so much warning signs, but there's definitely, there's genetic familial patterns that tend to be red flags for us, as practitioners to say, your child might be at risk. So, the best thing to do is, if you're thinking about having a baby is, trying to find out what these things are. And it really has to do with, the immune system being hypervigilant. So families that have long histories of, asthma and allergies, eczema, things that show that the immune system, is sort of out of whack. Those are strong, strong indicators that, be on guard, because they're going to be much more likely to take environmental insults, poorly.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk about all the body systems and what you went into the book about, how everything, what is one is compromised and how it works on the other. We're going to go to a commercial break, I think. In about a minute, 30 seconds. Okay. Thank you for that, Karina. We're going to go to a commercial break in 30 seconds. But when we do come back, I definitely want to talk about our bodies and what parents can do to, help control or help eliminate some of the things that these kids find disturbing, the allergies maybe that they have, and what we can do to recognize and help them. We'll be right back. Don't go anywhere.
We're just getting warmed up. Frankie Sense and More will be right back after we pay the bills.
Do you ever wonder if you're the only woman who runs errands in her yoga pants so it will look like she went to the gym? Or how about the only mom who feeds her kids raw cookie dough? Or are you the only one who cooks her family cold cereal for dinner? Do you need more laughter and less loudness? More self-love and less self-loathing? More joy and less judgment? You're not alone. Come to the living room, a place where we get comfy, candid, and confident together. Come seeking sanctuary and leave feeling renewed. We're saving a seat for you. Give yourself some living room today.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
To get the most nutrients, is it better to cook vegetables or to eat them raw? The answer is not black and white. Some nutrients in vegetables, like tomatoes, are actually enhanced during the cooking process. A study by Cornell University found that heat increases lycopene levels and makes it easier for the body to absorb this vital antioxidant. But research from Food and Nutrition Science found that raw vegetables contain higher levels of antioxidants. Cooking methods decrease water-soluble nutrients such as vitamin C and can rob vegetables of important nourishment for the body. The bottom line? Whether vegetables are cooked or raw, you'll get more benefit and nutrition from the vegetables you eat than the ones you don't. Consuming 5 to 9 servings of vegetables a day is the best approach. For the Fitness Minute, I'm Annette Hammond.
There it is.
And we're back. Thank you for sticking around. I am Frankie Picasso. This is Frankie Sense and More. Frederick and I are talking to Dr. Andrea Libutti right now, and her book, again, is Awakened by Autism. She is also, she started the Autism Wellness Revolution, and that's something interesting. Now, we were talking about allergies and systems and body systems that break down. And in the book, you talked about, if a child is walking on their tiptoes, that could be associated with what body system?
Well, there's never one answer for every kid, but there's it's a clue. So the vestibular system has to do with where a child feels they are in space. And having spoken to parents that have had kids that would do certain behaviors, once they were recovered and being able to talk to them, they would give us a lot of insight, like, well, I never really was quite sure where I was. So we would get information and input based on what they were doing. They were spinning around and around, or, watching ceiling fans or jumping up and down. While each child is different, there seems to be some patterns. So the vestibular system is a big one, part of the nervous system, that is out of whack. So, a lot of their sensory systems are hyperacute. So they have a hard time dealing with everything that's bombarding them at once. So a lot of their behaviors are aimed at soothing the bombardment from from their five senses.
Right. Let me ask you this. Let me ask you this. How does you have a very holistic approach to autism?
Yes.
How does it differ or enhance or complements the Western approach? You know what I mean?
Well, you know what? There's not really a Western approach to autism, other than there's one drug that's FDA approved, and that's Risperidol, and that's an antipsychotic drug. And there's no doubt that there's a use for it for some people. And there's the behavioral intervention therapy. That's sort of it. So probably. One of the reasons that I developed my holistic, bag of goodies and therapies is because there wasn't anything that Western medicine was giving me. So, really looking at what are some safe, efficient things that, will help me help my child, all leads back to Mother Nature mostly.
Well, one thing about you is that you were in a position to meet all of the people that you needed to meet, all of the research that you did. You could go and meet that research scientist, you could go and meet that doctor, and you did it. Like, you were diligent about, anything and everything, I will try it. And it worked for a few minutes, and then it didn't work anymore. And that has to be really frustrating, because you think, oh, yeah, I'm onto it now. Oh, no, now it's back to normal again. So you did meet somebody who became your mentor. Can you tell us about him?
Yeah, Sidney Baker. He was one of the founding fathers, so to speak, with Bernie Rimland and John Pangborn. Three guys back in the, I want to say probably the late 70s, early 80s, that formed the organization called Defeat Autism Now, or DAN. They were very big and active up until a few years ago, doing conferences, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, where parents could come and learn about all the biomedical treatments and science behind, some of the impaired, immune system, central nervous system, digestive system. So Sidney Baker just happened to live one town over from where I was living, and I took Jack to him. He was the first person I took Jack to after the developmental neurologist that we saw, and he just took me under his wing. He said, come on, sit down with me. We'll see patients together. I'll teach you everything I can. So I learned a lot about all of the physiology of, we call it the biochemical train wreck, all of the things that get derailed when kids with autism, manifest autism. So it was really, he's still a good friend, a very dear friend to this day. Sidney Baker, he's been wonderful. He's still in practice.
Now, sorry, Fred, I just want to mention, sure. She even implemented a hyperbaric chamber in her home, which cost you like $20,000. And it seemed to work for a little bit. You're a mom. Hey, I would do the same thing.
Yeah.
I did. I found a way to get that chamber. I found a credit card that I could have a $20,000 limit on, and I put it on there.
God bless you.
Those, it's understandable. People, all of these things that I tried worked beautifully for some kids. They really did. So, of course, how do you know? We don't know because everything was so new and experimental. And as long as it wasn't going to hurt my child, I was like, okay. I knew enough about hyperbarics just from being an emergency medicine doctor, understanding how you put, divers that gets the bends in. And I knew enough that it was safe. But, yeah, I definitely tried, I don't want to say everything, but close to everything. And, yes, when we did the hyperbaric chamber, there was something profound that happened to my child in a positive way. And I think, again, I mentioned it in the book where, that forlorn look where he wouldn't look at the camera, he looked through the camera, just kind of sad look on his face. He started smiling within 3 weeks, like smiling ear to ear. I have those pictures, up in my house because they're just so beautiful and he's so connected. And it sort of faded away then. And it was just like, what did I have that I don't have now? What did I touch on that I just lost? So it was bittersweet.
Yeah. What is the difference between autism and mental retardation?
Completely different. So I'm not an expert on mental retardation, but the interesting thing about autism is, even the seemingly severely affected kids, like the nonverbal, like profoundly labeled autistic, many of them, I can't say all of them, but many of them, many of them are actually intellectually intact. So they have this disconnect between their intelligence and their brain and what their body will actually do. It's almost like there's, we sort of know now there's, layers of toxins and things that are kind of blocking their brain from talking to itself. So many kids with autism have these very genius-like skills and abilities. And I'm not just talking about like savant skills, but profound areas of intelligence, whether musically, artistically, mathematically, visually, where, mentally retarded, either some sort of a chromosomal defect where, the ability, for the IQ to go up is not really existent, versus a child with autism who's sort of trapped inside probably a very intelligent brain. So that's really important, and that's one of the reasons that I'm so invested in doing this, because I feel like there's all these trapped, intelligent minds out there stuck in these autistic bodies, so to speak.
And there are. And then what's so interesting is that they've checked out for a little bit. They're in their world, but then sometimes they come back into our world, and they're just like, they just go. It's like, they run, right? Yeah. And they're just like everybody else again, which is really incredible. Yeah. Now, Fred is going to be a new dad. We know that. So, but one of the things that you said in your book, Andrea, is about the placenta, the afterbirth. In the placenta, they're finding like 260 different toxins or something. They're doing tests on it, and that's just the chemicals and the water and the mercury and all that stuff that we inhale from pollutants. That's all in there, and that's all affecting our children. And probably one of the biggest, I would say, controversies that we need to talk about is getting their childhood shots, all of that. Now, you're not totally against that. I mean, nobody wants tuberculosis and all those pertussis and all that stuff to come back. Right. But I think you were saying you don't have to get it all at once, and you don't have to get it all in one shot. Yes. I mean, one of the best advice I can give new parents, and trust me, I get this question all the time, friends, family, friends of friends, what do I do? You got to do it. It depends. Number one, is the child going to be in daycare or is the child going to be at home? If the child's going to be at home, really the safest way to do it is to wait as long as you can. There's certain, there's certain ways to do it so you're protecting the child against the most deadly things like Haemophilus influenza B, which causes epiglottitis. So there's certain things that you want to do when they're younger, and then space them out, because the newborn or the 1-year-old's immune system really isn't strong enough to take everything, for this population anyway. Plenty of people are. But for this, sensitive population, spreading things out and doing things individually will give their immune system a chance to mount the response without being overwhelmed by, preservatives and other things, that it's got to process. Now, we're going to go to a commercial break shortly, but you had a bat in the house, and that bat was in Jack's room, and before anything happened to Jack, and you had to make that decision that he was going to need rabies shots, and he was getting his childhood needles, and after the third shot, that's when you kind of nothing. The first 3 were okay, and then after that, it wasn't so good for him.
Yeah.
Did I get that right?
Yeah. The last 2 shots, because it was 5. Now they go down to 4 for rabies. But the 4th and the 5th shot, he had this weird sort of seizure-like activity while he was sleeping, and it just got more and more pronounced from the 4th one to the 5th one to the childhood shots. So there was something irritating, his central nervous system.
Right.
And, it was really scary. It had, the worst was 12 hours all night long, him just spasming all night long. And kind of breath holding.
Do you think it exacerbated something that was already there, or that it was the cause of the breakdown in his system?
It's a
Chicken
layering.
and egg, I guess.
So it's like a tipping point. So, I was an older parent, so I've got more of a body burden. I'm going to pass it on to my child. So there's my husband was an older parent, so we have a higher accumulated load. We give it to our children. And, rabies at 6 weeks old for 5 shots, that was a heavy-duty sort of thing. So it's, again, why it's so different for everybody. What's the body burden? What's the genetic or, predisposition? What is the immune system like? What is the central nervous system like? What have we got? What kind of genes did we get? So that does play a role in terms of the predisposition. So it's just tipping points. What's the tipping point going to be?
Yeah. I love how in the book, I don't know if I said it or not, because I probably said it to somebody, but you said if you've seen one case of autism, you've seen one case of autism. And that's really telling. That's, extremely telling. And it's a good way to look at it, really, because then you're not saying, oh, you've got this, we're putting a label on you, we're putting you over on side A, and that's where you're going to sit for the rest of your life.
Right.
And that's not what you did. And I love, we're going to come back. We're going to talk to the 2 ladies who are waiting, to tell us their stories. But I want to talk about the metaphysical and about the work that you did with a shaman, which is so interesting. Yeah. And how it affected you and Jack. So we're coming right back in just a few seconds. Right. Don't go away. Fred and April and Cerise and Andrea, we're all here. Wait for you.
Just getting warmed up. Frankie Sense and more will be right back after we pay the bills.
It's words you never heard.
A few years ago, some fishermen off the coast of Italy discovered some pottery along with fish in their nets. Divers were called out and discovered an ancient Roman ship whose galley, or caboose, a nautical term for kitchen, was extremely intact. Some of the food uncovered on board was pickled fish, wine, oil, and grain used to make the ship's biscuits, otherwise known as dandy funks. It is thought the 2,000-year-old boat was probably on its way to Spain when it sunk and was covered by layers of mud, baggy wrinkles and all. Baggy wrinkles are another name for the ship's ropes. The mud protected the ship from wear, explaining why the leftover food on board was still in such good condition. We land lubbers may not be familiar with leftovers on the sea, but we are familiar with leftovers in our kitchen.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Words.
It's words you never heard.
Did you know that having one hand in your pocket is considered arrogant in Turkey? My husband and I felt like gooserum noodles when this was pointed out to us while we were visiting in Istanbul. A gooserum noodle is a foolish person. What is seen as common behavior in one country is frequently considered bad manners or rude in another country. For example, while most Americans sit in the back seat of a taxi, in Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, Scotland, and the Netherlands, to sit in the back of the cab when the front passenger seat is available is considered rude. In Japan and South Korea, tipping is seen as an insult. And in China and India, it is considered greedy to tear into a gift in front of the giver. What's another word for a person with bad manners? A snurk.
It's words you never heard.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my new app, Too Funny for Words.
Hello, and we're back. I am your host, Frankie Picasso. If you forgot what you're listening to, it's Frankie Sense and More. And now we're going to meet two moms. April Roga, her son, Morgan, age 6, is on the autism spectrum. And Morgan is nonverbal. He's delayed both developmentally and cognitively. And she is going to tell us her story. April, tell us your story.
Hi, April.
Hi.
Welcome.
I'm so happy to be here. Actually, my journey started early on. I was one of those fortunate moms who noticed, even though he was my first and only child, and I started late. I know you guys were talking about starting late in life. I think I was like 36 when I had him.
Okay.
So, yeah, I didn't even know what was normal for an infant and what wasn't, but my mom was pointing out, as moms do, all of these things that he wasn't doing that he should be doing, turning over, holding his own bottle, pulling himself up. And
so this is like at 3 months old, you're already seeing things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Actually, it was when I got home from the hospital, his days and nights were totally flipped. And you know how they tell you when you have a newborn, oh, if they cry, don't pick them up.
Right.
I did, and it still didn't help. He would just cry and cry, and there was no amount of comfort that would get him to stop.
Okay.
And that didn't make sense to me. So we just, all these things coming together, we started investigating early on. And I went through this, every state has the early intervention where if your child meets certain criteria, they can get free services before age 3. And so my doctor and some other people told me about that. And he started getting into therapy programs at like age 2. And by age 3, or just before he turned 3, he was diagnosed as being on the spectrum. And he wasn't talking then, and he still doesn't talk now. And he's just turned 6 in May.
Tell us a little bit about what, your how it went for you psychologically. Like, what did you go through, when they told you that he was on the spectrum, and, what went through your mind?
Well, initially, when I heard autism as a possibility, when we were going through the therapies, was when I was resistant and in denial. No, that can't be my child. But because we were going through the process so early on and talking with different people, I think they knew that I was in denial. And so they were kind of being gentle and working us up towards the autism diagnosis because they knew that would be the ultimate diagnosis. But they told us that he might have sensory processing disorder. And I think they thought that might soften the blow.
Oh, okay.
And it really did, because it gave us time to kind of adjust to the idea. So for me, by the time he was diagnosed, I think I literally mourned for 24 hours, and then I let it go because I knew that wasn't going to serve my son well.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your son he showed head banging and physical aggression. Was it physical aggression against you or objects in the house, or? Well,
he headbangs when if his stomach's bothering him or there's something. He gets frustrated because he can't talk, and that's his outlet. And I don't even want to say, I didn't know what other thing to say besides aggression, because that sounds like violent. But I mean, he kicks, but he's only doing that now as he gets older and he's more aware cognitively.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, it's interesting. I mean, just like with anything, babies, puppies, animals, whatever, like we get to understand and know our child, what what a cry means and what an action means. And so do you feel like you're intuitively in tune with your son now? You know what these things are?
Yes. And that's something that I'd love to kind of share with other parents, is to really tune into your child, because they get so caught up in therapies and all the resources available that I think they forget to take time and smell the roses, so to speak, and just connect with their child.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a vision for your child? You know what I mean? Like, you can say, okay, he may have autism or spectrum, but you say, because many people say, well, you won't have meaning and you won't have this. But as a parent, do you have a vision like, no, he's going to have meaning and he's going to, because it starts with a parent, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, heck yeah. I don't see any limitations for him. I refuse to go there in my own head. And every day I take day by day, and you have to plan for your future, but I just don't get caught up in what if he's doing this when he's 18 or not doing this when he's 18, and cross that bridge type of mentality.
Yeah. That's awesome. Let's meet Cerise. Cerise, your son, Alexander, is a fraternal twin. He's 4 years old. You said that his twin developed typically normally, but Alex never reached any of his milestones. And I love that you said that, the hardest part about being a mom of a child with autism is helping others see that he's not broken or disabled. And you say he's beautiful, affectionate, funny, joyful, intelligent. He's one of your greatest teachers. But at 13 months old, he started to lose his words, stopped his eye contact, and would not answer to his name.
Right. Hi.
Yes.
My twins were actually premature, but only Alex ended up needing any help. He was in the NICU for 10 days. And Kenny, his brother, just was fine. He was just ready to be out. So Alex was the one needing help, and he was on a CPAP machine and had some digestive problems, which continued, and he was pretty small. So I wore him a lot and cuddled him close, but he always was a little bit delayed in his reaching his milestones, and they kept telling me that was because he was premature. But then when he was around 12 to 13 months, he started losing words, stopped eye contact, like you said, stopped responding to his name. And I immediately knew he had autism. So my story is a little bit different, I guess, in that way. I knew it was autism, and then I was on the mommy bear warpath to go make sure he got everything he could get to help him in any way possible. Our pediatrician told me I was crazy. He did not have autism. So I switched pediatricians, and I found somebody who would pay attention to what I saw. I went to my husband and I said, honey, I think our son has autism, and we're going to have to, probably be advocates for him in this. And he took a little bit of convincing as well. And family, thought I was nuts, but we ended up starting with the early intervention program here in our state. And he started getting therapy around 14 months old. He got occupational speech therapy and physical therapy. And he wasn't diagnosed until he was 2.5, but we had those therapies through that time and still continue to get them today.
And you say you're an inspirational singer, congratulations, and songwriter, and that you sing a lot with him. And he likes to sing back?
He does. He actually sings with me, or if I stop singing, he'll fill in the words. He was nonverbal until about 2.5, and then he started speaking, and he has hundreds of words now, but most of them are labeling. So he'll label everything he sees, but doesn't use words necessarily to communicate often. So that's really what we work on, is trying to get him to use those words to communicate. And he's getting better, the more we work with him. I am a busy mom, so I do leave a lot. I work 7 days a week. I'm a full-time real estate agent and a part-time singer and songwriter, and, out making a CD and doing all this stuff. But I'm grateful that I get to rearrange my schedule the way I need to for his therapies to make sure that he gets everything he needs, which, he has 42 hours a week of therapy. So we really have to, kind of work our schedules around that and make sure he's getting everything he needs.
How did your entourage react when did you have support from them? Were they judgmental? Or maybe this is a question for April and Cerise.
I would definitely say that people took some convincing, because I think I saw subtle signs before anyone else saw them. And to most people at 13 months old, him rocking and, sitting with a toy wasn't as odd as I thought it was. But they were all supportive. Especially once he started therapy and we started to see changes in him, we had so much support. And my husband has been a big advocate for making sure everyone understands that while he has autism, it doesn't make him less than. We just have to talk to him differently, approach him differently. He just needs more in certain areas than a typical child might need, but it doesn't make him less than anyone else.
Yeah. April?
Yeah, no, my family and friends have all been very supportive throughout, but I know a lot of people who are in a different position with their families. I really feel for them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, okay, Andrea, jump in here now.
Yeah.
Thoughts?
My thoughts?
Yeah.
I love, Cerise, your attitude. It's not many parents that have the, no limitations attitude. That's like what I'm trying to help parents come to. So, yay that you're that kind of parent. And, looking at these kids as, differently abled, while some parents say, well, that's great, I still want a normal child. If we look at them differently abled without limitations, we just have to understand there's ways to support them and help them in the best ways we can. But then there's this other part of them that can be cultivated and, brought out. So they have these strengths that we don't even know about yet. And, no limitations. I don't know. That just kind of stuck with me. That's just such a beautiful way to think about these kids.
Yeah, in April, you, I saw you have a hotline that you talk to other women and help them. I love that.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's pretty cool. So have both of you, done dietary changes and looked at, I know Dr. Libutti, she got rid of all of the cleaning products in her house. She just uses vinegar and Castile soap, which is what I do too, because I don't like chemicals. But you really kind of try to, and shampoos, and really tried to maximize the limit that any more toxins are going to reach your kids. And you even had to sell your house because you had black mold. Like, you didn't even know that. Like, that's crazy how it was affecting all of you.
Yeah. That was something else. But yeah, we had a lot of asthma, a lot of problems. Yeah.
Do either of you?
All of these.
Go ahead, Fred. We're going to go to break in a minute.
Yeah, it was just a quick silly question. But is vinegar as good as all the cleaning products? Because I believe all the natural stuff is as good.
Oh yeah,
and a lot cheaper.
Yeah,
it works beautifully, and then you don't have to worry if you drop food on the counter and pick it up. It's beautiful. It does the job. Definitely.
It does the job, and it sterilizes too if you leave it long enough. I mean, it is a.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We're going to go to commercial break. Don't go anywhere. We're going to come back and talk about more great stuff about autism and parenting, and not cures, but help. So let's do that.
We'll be right back after we pay the bills.
It's merging never hurt.
So last night, my husband was laughing as he was reading about the differences between men and women. According to the article, men get single tusks or hiccups more often than women. Everyone knows that women are better at multitasking than men. I'm good at both multitasking and procrastinating, which means right now there are 28 things that I'm putting off until later. What's another word for a person who puts everything off until the last minute? A cunctator. Women blink nearly twice as much as men, and while men can read smaller print than women can hear better. In fact, when a woman says, "What?" she heard you. She's just giving you a chance to change what you said.
It's merging never hurt.
I'm Carolyn Davidson, and you can have fun challenging your words you never heard vocabulary with my free app, Too Funny for Word.
It's the Fitness Minute with fitness expert Annette Hammond.
It's a fact that working out for 30 minutes a day will improve your health and make you feel oh so good. But if you are on a quest to lose weight, you should be looking to exercise aerobically for 45 minutes to an hour. I know that may sound daunting, but it's really not. You don't have to kill yourself to keep your heart rate up for 45 to 60 minutes. I know people who put their iPod on and walk for an hour a day. Consequently, they are losing weight, increasing their energy, and feeling great. On the other hand, if you're like me and want to maintain your present weight, then 30 minutes of cardio a day is perfect. The benefits of cardio exercise are vast, and even if you're not trying to lose weight, it is necessary and vital to your health. So schedule in your cardio exercise 6 to 7 days a week and watch your health, energy, and outlook on life improve. I'm Annette Hammond.
respond.
Oh, we're coming back now.
Okay.
I think we're back. I barely heard my tunes, but I think we're back. And I am Frankie Picasso. Frederick Bai is my co-host. We are listening to Frankie Sense and More, and more good things about autism. Dr. Andrea, I wanted to touch base now on the spirituality aspect. You
Sure.
went and visited a shaman. You looked at alternative therapies. And it's interesting because it really, when you connect with the higher self, and people, I think, are knowing what that means today more and more.
Mm-hmm.
You wanted to heal yourself. And I think that these children, because of their hypersensitivity, they do respond to energy. They do feel energies. And so when you are in a better space, I think they're in a better space. So did you notice after your own therapy, let's say, with a shaman, and you took Jack too to the shaman, but with yourself, did you notice that he was different when you came back? Different?
Yes, and one of the this is an ongoing work in progress. As we all try to get rid of some of our baggage and sort of raise our vibration, so to speak. But all kids pick up on things, and kids with autism are hypersensitive, so they really pick up on things. And I think one of the most important things that a parent can do is, work on themselves, get rid of the fears, get rid of the limiting beliefs, because,
they feel that.
Let's face it. What's that?
No, I just said they feel that, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yes, definitely. And they're going to be more willing to participate in this world when it feels safer and it feels more comfortable and it's less judging and it's not fearful. So, coming from that place is super important as a parent. And it happens, as time goes on, it's just my son is the perfect barometer of everything that I'm evolving to. He really is.
That's incredible. So the first time you went to see a shaman, do you want to share that story?
Oh, sure.
That's a great story.
Yeah. So this was a shaman that we found in Vermont after reading The Horse Boy, which is a story by Rupert Isaacson with his son. They were looking for shamans in Mongolia to heal their son. And so I found the shaman in Vermont, and we went up there. And, we met with her. She did some things in the office, and it was like, okay, well, I'm going to come to the place that you're staying. This is what she's telling us. And I'm going to work on your son while he's sleeping. So shamans work with soul fragmentation and different things with, splitting of the soul and personalities and stuff. So she's with Jack doing things for a couple of hours, and she comes into the kitchen and she sits with us, and she tells me something that really changed my life. So she looks at me and she says, your son is in a constant state of trying to return to the ecstasy of death. And that was really disturbing to me at the time. Because I didn't have any sort of spiritual understanding, and things just unfolded within the process of the year. I don't know if you guys remember Jill Bolte Taylor and My Stroke of Insight. Did any of you guys,
Yes.
So she has this experience of being in this euphoric nirvana, and that's what the shaman was telling me about Jack. Like, he's in this place of striving for that euphoria and nirvana. And, fast forward a year, looking at all these, near-death experiences and that same sort of pattern happening, it sort of opened me up spiritually to the bigger picture. I've always believed in God and had a relationship with God, though I wasn't raised in an organized religion specifically. But this was just like this big opening for me. And it made me understand that these kids are sort of, for lack of a better word, but like vibrating up here, and we might be vibrating down here. And if you raise your vibration up, they will bring theirs down a little, and you can kind of meet in the middle. But that's what they're looking for from a spiritual perspective. They don't want to be like that. They want us to be more like them, if you can believe that.
Well, why wouldn't we?
and what good did that do to your child? What did it do? What difference did you notice?
Well, there's always been, as time's gone on, these, we have these little breakthroughs of connection. The best thing I can describe is connection. And, the other thing I can say is that, my son is 12 and a half, and, a lot of kids at this age where they go through puberty and whatnot, aggression gets worse and anxiety. My kid is so happy, and he's always been happy, and he's fun, and he's happy, and he jokes a little bit. It's like I don't have to experience all of those trials and tribulations, and it's not because, he's autistic. It's because he's really centered and balanced. And the more I become centered and balanced, I can just see it in him. The more he opens up.
Now, you attributed some of that to the Sunrise program.
Yes.
What is that? What did they do there?
Well, the Sunrise program is, very simply speaking, it says, listen, you got to meet your kid where they are. You've got to say, to heck with what I think he needs to be doing, get down on their level and say, I'm going to let you do what you're doing. I'm going to love and accept you where you are. And when you're available, then I'm going to try to pull you towards me, but only when you're available. I'm not going to force things. I'm going to let you lead me. And so it creates this love and acceptance. It creates this, attitude and feeling of everything's just fine the way it is. And so instead of needing your child to be a certain way, you let go of all that. And it doesn't mean you don't want them to be a certain way, but you no longer are tied to that, that anxiety and that stress of, if he doesn't do this by then, or if he doesn't do this by then, So it eliminates the anxiety and the stress, and they rise. They rise to the occasion. They do.
And your son went leaps and bounds back into this world from that program.
Shouldn't we be like this with all of our children?
Yes.
Not just autism,
I agree, Fred. Yeah. We should celebrate them who they are. And it's this problem about the socialized world. We're so concerned about how people think and what they're going to think about you as a parent, and your child's acting a little bit strange or different. We should celebrate their strengths,
How did it make you a better doctor?
It's not what you would think. At least I don't think it's what you would think. One word. I have so much more compassion for people. I do not look at people. I don't get that, they can't help themselves. The best way to describe it is I just have this, I look at people and I see the struggling and I see the pain and suffering that we all go through on our own journeys. And I just have 100 million times more compassion for everybody that I meet in the hospital. It's the most profound thing, and it makes me so much happier. It makes patients happier. I just have a different relationship with my patients now. I don't know why that is, other than he's opened my heart. My son has opened my heart.
Yeah. That's beautiful. What kind of jobs can an adult with autism do? What can they do?
I'll tell you this. I think that the jobs that people with autism, I don't think they necessarily exist yet. I think they're special talents and abilities, which we are just starting to discover, are going to require new fields and new industries. I just wrote an article in the Huffington Post about this. I just discovered that my son has a visual spatial aptitude in the 99.9th percentile. So that means that he can see big picture. His thought process is extremely fast. So, what we do today is more, is slower. It's almost like there's, they have these, like I said, these unique strengths that we can't really even understand. And so I think that new things are gonna crop up. So I don't want to pigeonhole them into, computer science and engineering, because a lot of them will be good at that, but some of them are so musically and artistically brilliant. So I think, the sky's the limit.
Awesome.
I do.
Yeah.
So there's a convention or I'm sorry, a video summit, a spiritual video summit. Who was going to do that?
Yeah.
In November?
So, I was approached by a physician in Texas who has a 12-year-old son with autism. He's like, I have this dream of doing this autism spirituality summit so we can get, people together that talk about the bigger picture of what these kids are here for. So we have a lineup of 20 speakers, including Rupert Isaacson, who wrote The Horse Boy, who prompted me to go see the shaman.
Nice.
But we have this, speaker lineup to talk about some of these bigger picture things, but also to talk about what parents can do to help their kids now. Because talking about all that sort of esoteric stuff doesn't help parents in their day-to-day challenges. So it's sort of a combination. So people can begin looking at things differently and stop seeing it as such a limiting, tragic sort of thing. But yeah, November 5th to 14th, it'll be aired for free over 10 days.
Oh, that's awesome. How can we find out about it? Just go to your website?
My website is just my name, AndreaLibutti.com. People can sign up for my newsletter. They'll get information that way, or they can just wait and see. I'm going to post some things probably in the next 2 weeks to let people know. It's called Awaken to Autism Summit.
Nice. Now, we've only got a couple of minutes left, but April or Cerise, did either of you have a question for Dr. Libutti?
I don't have a question right now, but I want to say that I'm very excited to read your book and go to your website and find out all the things you do and follow you forever because you sound wonderful.
Well, and vice versa. Vice versa.
I was going to invite her to move here to Tennessee so that I could tap into her brain on a daily basis.
Oh, that's great.
You got my email address. You can tap in away. I'll be happy to help you in any way I can.
Yeah. Did you guys get her email? Yeah.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, wonderful.
Yeah,
well, I just want to thank
pleasure.
you again for changing the shape and the lens on how parents and everybody else, grandparents, other people can look at these kids with autism, and just like Fred said, all of our children in general, to really individualize them instead of trying to make them part of the group and celebrate their uniqueness. And I think, when we do that, and we start to do that with one another as adults too, you're going to see a different society. You're not going to see bullying anymore because there's no need for it. All that fear will be gone.
Absolutely.
I like how you say, I like, Doctor, how you say you don't want to pigeonhole your child on, what kind of job he's going to do. You know what I mean? The sky's the limit.
Yeah.
I think it's very important. I think sometimes as adults we just have this narrow mindset,
Mhm.
So,
yeah. That's super important for parents because what their kids can do, whatever is happening now on this planet, we may not even fathom what they could do.
I believe out of time, but what a great note to leave on. What a fantastic note to leave on, eh, Fred? You can't even fathom the amazing things that they can do. Woo! Ladies, thank you so much for being our guest today. Thank you, listeners, for tuning into Frankie Sent Some More as you do each and every week. I really appreciate it. And we will be back again next week with another wonderful show. Dr. Libutti, thank you again. We appreciate you being here.
Bye-bye, Cerise.
Thank you so much.
Yes, bye,
Bye.
Cerise.
Thank you, guys.
Bye, guys.
Shit, now you